We're going to give this a shot. I'm not really sure how this is going to work out, but I'm going to try to do a little recording every day. Today is January 21st, 2026. I'm old. I have Alzheimer's. I'm in the MCI stage, the mild cognitive impairment stage. It's I'm 4 years in, nearly. Well, let's see. I was diagnosed initially in June of 2022, but it took months to PET scan. Um, and I got the PET scan in August. Uh, and wait, I got final confirmation in August of 2022. And I was already on 90 days of short-term disability, and then I went on full-term disability. Um, the reason why I noticed. Well, let me go back, and I'm just going to give you a quick neurological history on this Finch guy here. I oh, you might notice I have. I don't know if you can see this, but I have a burst blood vessel in my right eye, in my left eye, and I keep getting those. I had like five recently, and they put me on a blood pressure medication. It's a very low dose, and my blood pressure is actually kind of low on Monday when I went to the see my new neurologist, and so I went off of it, and actually I got the first good night's sleep that I've had in quite a while, and I think it was messing with my sleep. Then I also think it's messing with the blood vessels in my eyes, um, and so anyway. I guess we'll start with the first one. I had a bicycle accident when I was 6. I was in at the time it was called Nova Elementary, and it was kind of an experimental school, and you had to take tests. It was basically IQ testing to get in. And I was there. I started when I was 5. And anyway, 6 years old, summer. Been a rough time at the time, and I got a bicycle, and my dad, you know, I was tiny, and I had trouble riding it, so I had to actually walk the bicycle up the driveway, slightly sloped, just so I could get enough speed to actually pedal. And one day there was a rock in the road, and I decided I was going to try to jump it because I saw other kids jumping rocks and stuff. So I thought I'll be a kid, and I hit the rock and stopped the bike, and I did. I'd only been riding for probably a couple of weeks, and I didn't realize you're supposed to let go of the handlebars. So I just held on the handlebars and went straight over and let it drive my forehead into the pavement. And I was always told it was a severe concussion. But as I got older, I could feel this line going down here underneath where my skull healed. So I had a fracture, and uh, that kind of explains why mom was always we couldn't play contact sports, and it's like I was told if you get another major concussion before you're 20, I think it messed up my brain forever anyway. But here I am at 66, and I made it through, and still scored high on cognitive tests, and I kind of burned out of the Nova after the third grade. There's a lot of stuff going on in my family. My father died, my mother almost died, and I just wasn't. I was kind of messed up as a kid because of that, and had other things go on. I'm not going to talk about it. But anyway, I had that happen, and I'm going to lay out that I had chickenpox twice, which can affect your nervous system. I had it at 3. I don't remember my mom, but I do remember having it at 7 or 8. Anyway, chickenpox, and then I had shingles at age 23, right after a couple weeks after my mother died, and that was a horrible thing. She'd been burned very severely, and I ended up graduating from college and going home instead of going off with some friends. There's one idea I had, and I was pretty much leaning towards it, going off with some friends and being a famous starving comedy writer. But anyway, I had to go home, take care of her. Uh, then she had the burns my last semester, and I went home to take care of her. And she she committed suicide. She jumped in the pool, and 2 weeks later, I had shingles, and it was very weird because I went to her dermatologist, and he took pictures, and they compared them to the pictures they had of her shoulder that I had been treating, because that was the only place that really never healed fully after she got out of the hospital. And my shingles looked. I mean, the pattern was so close to looking like the pattern I've been treating for months. That was kind of creepy, and it freaked out the dermatologist too. The dermatologist called his partner in and said, "Hey, look at this," and they're like, "Oh my god, sympathetic reaction or something." So anyway, had that, which that was a foreshadowing of neurological issues. When I was 20, excuse me, when I was 42, I had Ramsay Hunt Bell's palsy. Everybody said it was, now the doctor said, "Oh, it's just normal Bell's palsy." Well, normal Bell's palsy should just leave you with numb, but mine left me with excruciating pain on the right side of my face, and it was it was difficult because you lose your self confidence when you're looking in the mirror and you look like some kind of weird um, dolly painting, like your face is melting off the side, and it's agonizing, and people look at you funny in supermarkets, and you got to smile at a kid like I did in the frozen food section, because she was cute and she was with her mom, and I smiled at her and she screamed and cried. Anyway, took me took me 3 months to start to get the function of my face back, and they were. I was reading and said, if you don't, it said if you don't, I don't know if it's true, but if you don't get your full function of your face back by the time you're about within 6 months, it's not going to get better. And so I was scrambling around. My first neurologist wouldn't believe me. There was Ramsay Hunt, and I found some discussion groups about Bell's palsy on Great Britain. Great Britain, at least healthcare providers were ahead of the curve on varicella zoster, the shingles, the chickenpox virus. They were ahead of the curve, and so I was discussing my issues with Bell's palsy people, and the Bell's palsy people said, "Sounds like you have Ramsay Hunt. And there's a group for that." So I went over there, and I was, and one thing, I was taking pictures every day, and I was writing what was going on, which was good. So I guess I'm kind of doing that now, and this will be my Alzheimer's journey going forward. I'm going to try to do it every day. It might not be every day, and I don't know if I'm going to put it on YouTube. I might. What the hell? I don't care if anybody watches it. Maybe sometime down the line it'll help somebody. Uh, but man, I look old. I look old. How in the hell did I get so old? I don't understand. Anyway, um, so I had the Ramsay Hunt Bell's palsy, and it took a good full year. It's like a full body flu kind of feeling. A good year to get over that. And I had a new baby. I mean, my daughter was born. My daughter, my daughter Yale was born about 5 weeks after I had the Bell's palsy. So I was still sick as a dog when she was born. But the thing was that I did have some disability insurance. It was good. And I recommend everybody, if you're under 25, get, if you can. I don't even know if they still sell them, but get yourself a small disability policy. My disability policy, it was a 40-year policy, but I got a good 2 years out of it at $2,000 a month, which that was a lot of money back then. But it's not much today. But I'll tell you what, it's a mortgage payment. So go ahead and get yourself some disability insurance. But anyway, I digress. Uh, so, where was I? Oh, it's the Alzheimer's. Um, yeah, so I had the Ramsey Hunt, and it really did. I mean, and it nails it. It really does mess with your self confidence when well, I couldn't enunciate properly for quite a while, and I still have an issue with my right eye. If I get stuck in a stiff breeze, especially without my glasses, my right eye will pop open because I don't have a lot of control over my right eye. And it was left me it let that left me with like a permanent bit of pain on trigeminal nerve. And then in 20 you know in 2012 I had what they aseptic meningoencephalitis, but they theorized that it was West Nile, and there were a lot of West Nile patients that year, and a lot of deaths from West Nile. And symptoms didn't really uh, differ. And I was in the ICU for a day, and I had some really interesting hallucinations. I would just equate them to not being in hell, but watching hell uh, through like on a TV screen or something, where there's big machines running through like a field, and then they would go into a town, and you couldn't really see what they're doing, but there was screaming and all this weird noise, and and everything was the background noise was what I and it was like full blast. I called it Viking death metal at the time, and when you know it, I found a genre, Viking death metal. So, maybe it sounds pretty much like it. So maybe I just somehow plugged into somebody else's mind that was doing this kind of music. I don't know. God's a little weird. He does some strange things because, I woke up one morning and after I was out of the ICU, and it was in isolation. It took a while. If anybody would come in the room, they had to suit up to come in because they didn't know. I didn't know if I was infectious or not or whatever. And so I woke up and there's this elderly black woman in a pillbox hat, like dressed for church, like we would see back in the '60s, and she was leaned over. She was praying, and very very and I was like, what the heck is this woman doing in my room? And I kind of it was bed was slightly reclined, and I kind of leaned forward a little bit, and she lifted her head and she said, "I was trying to wake you with my mind," and that was a little bit alarming, and so I rubbed my eyes, and she was gone, and so well that was interesting because I got an old lady praying, and then she gives me this demonic voice, and I'm wondering, it's like, okay, I was in hell, I was watching hell, and then I saw somebody praying, but it turned back into some devilish thing. Very very odd. But anyway, I digress again. So then in 2017 I had meningitis again, aseptic, and they couldn't figure it out. And so I went home and I'm trying to recover because it takes a full year to recover from meningitis, and I was working out. And finally, by 2016, I was in the best shape I've been in 20, 30 years. I was too heavy, but I had a great personal trainer. I got my personal record on the bench press, 235 on my 56th birthday 10 years ago. And I was kind of ripped, but I was when I started working out, I was 265 pounds, and then but that was right before the meningitis. I lost 25 pounds from meningitis, and I never really gained it back. So let's say I was 240 when I was doing that, but it's still really heavy. And then after I quit after I lost my trainer, I gained 5 more pounds. But then in 2019, I went keto, but I passed the 2017. Anyway, keto, I lost 45 pounds, got to 200. And my goal is to get down to 178, which was my high school graduation weight. Actually, my doctor at the time told me that was my best weight. So anyway, in 2017, I had it again, and they're like, we don't know what's going on. And I did research, and I found out that there's a thing called recurrent meningitis that is caused by the chickenpox virus. So it matches up. And then I recovered from that. I recovered from that well. I was still functioning very high. After the first meningitis, I scored 98 on the cognitive test, which is high. 2017, I didn't do the cognitive testing again, but I didn't notice any fall off afterwards. And then when I got promoted in 2016, and we were trying to move up to Tallahassee, move from Tallahassee to just outside of Nashville, and we were working on that. And I think the stress of that kind of triggered the second round of meningitis. I don't know, but stress will definitely trigger this stuff. And so I brought the paperwork to my neurologist, and I said I think I have recurrent meningitis, and he looked at it, and then he actually called me, which is kind of unusual for doctors. So yeah, I'm going to change your diagnosis to recurrent meningitis in both cases. And he goes, I recommend that you get the Shingrix shot in 2 years. You don't get it now because it's too early. It was kind of new. And so in 2019, in late 2019, I had the Shingrix shot. So hopefully that, we were thinking, well, the Shingrix shot's supposed to be against shingles, but recurrent meningitis is from uh, varicella zoster will um, can cause meningitis. And so, I thought, well, maybe that should take care of it. I won't get meningitis again. And then in on May 13th of 2021, I had the second Moderna shot, and I woke up the next morning with complete loss of taste and smell, and I went to mow the lawn. I had tachycardia, and the tachycardia lasted about a month. But then, 8 days after the second shot, um, I had I had acute trigeminal neuralgia. So this nerve was already messed up from the Ramsay Hunt Bell's palsy, and I'm sure that it was done from the shingles. By the way, I have optic nerve damage in my right eye from meningitis, and it took a couple of years of top neurological ophthalmologist looking at it to say no, because it looked like a glaucoma thing, but it's in the wrong place, and he says it's got to be from meningitis. No, that's not certain. There's no way to really know, but that's about sense. So, so then I had anyway. So had the shot, lost taste and smell, tachycardia, then acute trigeminal neuralgia, which they say is the second most painful condition uh, known to man. It feels like you got shot by a shotgun in the face, and it drop you on the floor, and it evacuates your sinuses. You wouldn't believe how much stuff is actually up there if your sinuses get completely evacuated. That was just a joy being on the floor and having, it's, anyway. Um, so I had that, and that made this pain here. When you have a mild pain, your brain can work and drop it out. So, but I've always been, if I think about it, immediately I can feel it. But this is constant and permanent. It's like on the pain scale, it's like a 1 or 2. I have it all the time, and I'm probably never gonna get rid of it. And pain meds don't really seem to touch it. Um, the Lyrica does help, keep it down. But anyway, I had the acute trigeminal neuralgia, and then about 2 or 3 weeks later, I had a consultant call me after a conference call. I managed conference calls for deals between hospitals and medical. My hospital, I worked for HCA Healthcare, and I was doing managing conference calls on contracts and stuff, or just kind of all kinds of anything to do with businesses businesses that were contracting with hospitals and involved physicians because there was a lot of extra rules and regs. Anyway, so I was doing that. And I was functioning at a very high level. I had 153 projects on my plate. My last day, uh, and then consultant called me and said, "Hey, Finch, you dropped off a call in the middle of a sentence and you never came back," and everybody hung up. And he said, "You did something like that in a previous call a couple days ago." I didn't even know I was doing that. And so I called my neurologist because you have to have a neurologist all the time. And I was having MRIs and EEGs every other year or so. So, and everything looked good. The MRI didn't show any lesions or anything. And I looked good. And then I went in, and I went in the next day, and my neurologist gave me an EEG and said, "Hey, you've developed late onset epilepsy, and you were having absence seizures. So, but let's not medicate it yet. Just pay attention to it, and if it gets worse, we'll do something." And then about 10 days later, I have what I believed was a grand mal seizure, um, because I was just sitting at the computer working, and everything went wacko. And then I found myself on the floor, and I had physically had to crawl out of my office to my daughter's room because my wife was out working. And so we called the ambulance. The ambulance came, and I was still having tremors, and got to the hospital, and they said, "Well, you just had tremors." But I know that I completely blacked out and was on the floor. So um, I'm assuming that was a grand mal. And the neurologist did put me on epilepsy medication after that. So I'm on that. That's lamotrigine, and that doesn't seem to have any really side effects for me. And they said that's weird. And then I had to take really good notes, and because of the way the conference calls went, you had to make you had to be able to go through the call and then quickly get everything down. What were the results? Just really briefly, just some notes on where the next steps and who is supposed to do what before the next call. And then 2 weeks later, you have the call, and you can look at your notes before, because you got a lot of projects on your plate. So you got all this stuff going on, and you're trying to manage everything. And my notes started looking a little bit weird, and I was like, well, I don't think that's what happened. And I was kind of confusing different calls in, and then I got to the point where they didn't make any sense at all, and I didn't know what to do on the next call. And then I let that go for a couple of weeks, and I said, I'm really messing up here. There's a lot of ramifications if you don't. There's ethics and compliance issues that could come up if you make mistakes, and those can be very costly. And so back to the neurologist, and they did cognitive testing, and I scored a 49 on the long test. It's 7 hours with my 7 visits with my neuropsychologist, and he went through it and scored a 49. And then a couple months later, they came out with a computer version, computer cognitive testing called CogniView, and that takes about a half hour. And I scored a 48. So I guess about anything below 50 is dementia. So hey, I'm demented. Um, is that right? I don't know. Anyway, just call me. It's got MCI. I can't. If you hit me with one fact, I can. And I think about it. Now I'm at the point where I have to snapshot it, and it's like maybe put an icon in my head for what I'm supposed to do or what you're saying. Um, but but yeah, I would. It hit me with two facts really quick, and I lose it. I might keep both every once in a while. I usually lose one unless I have the time to think it through. But if hit me with three facts rapid fire and I'm under stress, I'm not going to remember any of them. They just go. And lately, I call it I forget what I forgot. I'll go, oh yeah, my watch is charged. I got a fast charger. Oh, I got to get my watch. And then I'll get up and go in the other room, and I'll go, okay, I'm looking for something. What was I looking for? So I forgot what I forgot. Or, if I put my cup down somewhere, and I'm I have a habit, if I put anything down, I look at it and I just take a snapshot. And that little thing, that little time will really, really help. But anyway, it took months. I finally got a PET scan, and the PETs, cognitive, they're like, well, you got dementia. Now I knew I had one copy, the ApoE4 gene, which is an Alzheimer's gene. And I'm the youngest cousin of all my family by 18 years. Uh, the closest to me is 18 years older, and I've watched on my mother's side. I believe they all got two copies of the gene because my aunt and uncle were actually related. They're 2 generations separated. I don't think they knew they were related, but they were like first cousins once or twice removed. I can't remember exactly, but it's something like that. And so they get two copies of the same gene. So all of their kids had Alzheimer's. They either died from it or with it. Now I've got one of those is still living. I think I haven't talked to her son in about a year, and I need to reach out to him and give him a call. Anyway, so I watched them go, especially my cousin Levon, because I saw her she was probably a year or two further into that, and she was around 75. So she was probably showing symptoms around age 70, but I was showing the same symptoms at age 62. So I'm wondering if the Moderna vaccine accelerated something, or there's I don't think there's ever there's no way to tell. And so I had the Moderna vaccine, got that. There I am, blanking out a little bit of where I was. Uh, so, and we finally got approved for a PET scan, and I had the PET scan, and I pulled down the radiologist notes, and this was like around noon on the day, and it said this is indicative of Alzheimer's. And I had lesions in both temporal lobes, and they're uniform. They basically look the same on both sides, and I've seen the pictures. And in the early stage Alzheimer's, and I wasn't expecting that. I had no idea. I thought it was just brain injury from the meningitis and the vaccine, and and I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to prove that I'm vaccine injured, but I strongly suspect it. I think that my previous health history kind of set me up for it, for some insult coming into my immune system to activate and speed up my decline. I guess I probably was going to get Alzheimer's, start to show the same things around age 70, and I started showing at age 62. That's just my own theory. But when I read that, I basically spent the rest of the afternoon on the floor in my office, sobbing and freaking out because I didn't have a neurologist appointment for 2 more weeks, and so I was a mess, and I ended up being a total mess for 2 years. I had delusions of grandeur and all kinds of crap. It was ridiculous, and my family was it was just horrible to my family, and I felt alone because nobody could understand where I was, and that was true. Um, but I was thinking, well, I got to accomplish everything I want to accomplish everything I always wanted to accomplish. I don't have constraints of a career or a boss or those kind of goals. I need to set goals. I just wanted to get everything done in a hurry, and I was really frustrated because nobody else wanted to get things done in a hurry. And I finally, it took about 2 years, and finally found a church, and I found a Christian counselor, and I got back into my faith that I'd been out of for decades. But I couldn't figure out why I couldn't find a church. And now I've learned that that I have certain beliefs about God and Jesus that were baked in when I was a kid, and there are only 1% of the churches are Reformed churches in the sense that I understand things. And so anyway, I found that. I found a great counselor, and I started to get my head together, and I got my basically body, mind, and soul. I got that. I made a lot of progress, and I'm a lot more settled. The big concern right now is finances in the family, because I did a calculation a couple of weeks ago. My income is only about 18% of what it was before my I believe vaccine injury. I'm just going to call it a vaccine injury. That's what I call it anyway. And so and then it's going to I should say that come September, when I lose my business, when my employment uh, um, disability, it'll will be at 18% of what I was. And then there's Jack, my future service dog. He's a giant Australian Shepherd. Jack, come over here and meet everybody. All 0 people that will ever watch this. Jack, Jack, sit. Hey, sit. Is your pretty face? Wait, come here, right here. Okay, now sit right there. Sit. Sit. Come on, Jack, sit. I gotta get your face in the screen. There we go. Oh, your face is in the screen. We're gonna look it down just a little bit. There's my pretty boy, Jack. He's the best dog in the world. Aren't you the best dog in the world? Oh, yes, you are. Look at that boy. Anyway, let me get back over here. Let's just leave it like this, and I'll just sit with Jack. He's a 82-pound Australian Shepherd. He's bred for service, and he's like the best dog that's ever been. Um, we had 3, and we lost our Aussie Ruby. And I'm just rambling on here, by the way. We lost our Australian Shepherd Ruby in on April 26th of 2024. She was 16 years old. We got her when she was 3, a rescue, and she was my well, she helped me recover from meningitis twice, and she helped me keep my act together until we got Jack. But she got to the point where she couldn't hike with me anymore, and that was a really bummer. And I knew my neuropsychologist said get a service dog, so I researched and I found a place that bred service Australian Shepherds because I love my Australian Shepherd Ruby, and she was wonderful. And so I thought, well, I'll get another one and get him trained to do it. And Jack picked me when I went. And I popped out of a pile of puppies and sat at my feet. And I was only there about 2 minutes. I picked him up. Didn't realize he was 16 pounds, and Ruby was 40. So he would, set him down, and with all his fluff, because he had a show coat, he looked about the same size when he was 8 weeks old as Ruby. Half the size of Ruby at 18 weeks, and within 8 weeks, but within probably 6 months, he was her size. So anyway, he was giant. He is giant, and he's wonderful. And he believes he's a toddler. And going to the park and watching him run around with the 4, 5, 6-year-olds is great. I wish I could take videos, but that would be like the creepy old man perv thing. So we're not doing that. I've got some pictures of him running with the older kids, and that's fun. But I'd love to have some videos of him with little children because he's so docile and loving. He sees little kids, he flops over. And there have been times when I've seen nothing but one paw sticking out and just got kids all over him. He's just loving it. So he's a joy, and I guess we're at the point now where we got to figure out how to pay for his next training. It's probably going to be $5,000 or $6,000 at 3 weeks away camp. That's going to drive me crazy, but he's going to need to be able to do things. I have a tendency to pop off when I get frustrated, and we really need to get him to come up to me and because he calms me down pretty quickly. No, but if I'm yelling or something, he hides, and gotta get him turned around and saying, well, if Dad's yelling, he's hurting, and let's go console him and calm him down. And that's one thing we need to do. And I'm afraid I might get lost on a trail, sometimes. And so he's going to need to learn that if I get lost, we're going to only go on trails that we already know. And I'm going to walk with my wife or somebody else the first several times on trails, and until he knows the path. And if I get off, go down the wrong cut in the trail, he'll be able to help me find my way out, and those kinds of things, and just get him. I'm just trying to get it set up so that my family, he can kind of fill in and take care of some of the things my wife and daughter will have to do. And my daughter's 23 now. She's just a superstar. She's management track at Publix after flunking out of university. The second semester, I got my diagnosis the week before finals. She didn't do anything, didn't study, didn't hand in to her final project. So she was kind of invited to leave, and she thought, well, I'll get my I'll just take a year and try to get my head together and go work at Publix, because my wife worked at Publix. We love Publix, and I had told Shelley, my wife, that she would never have to work again right before this happened. I said, 5 more years, I'll be out of here, and we'll have enough, and we won't have to worry about anything. We'll be able to do what we want, travel, do things like that. And, we got a nice house, the nicest house we've ever had when we moved up here, and all that's gone. Um, we're we're really going to be on kind of a shoestring. We'll fixed income, well, my side, and she's going. Anyway, Gail went to Publix, and just to get her head together, and now she's management track. It just meshed. She just took off and blossomed and got over her severe depression. She's still, with. I mean, I can't imagine what. Well, I can. I've seen what happened to me and my parents, and she's sensitive, and I just but I love watching her blossom. I think she's going to have a great future. She went. She didn't. She maybe she wants to manage a store, or maybe just be a department manager. But they make really good money, and it's a family owned company, and they really take care of their employees. So, and then my wife was trying to figure out what to do, and she's thinking she needed work at home. But I, maybe 5 or 6 years before I need somebody around all the time. And so I said, hey, why don't you go back to Publix? And she thought about it for a day, and she said, okay. And she went, and now, so she just got ready, and her training was, she just had to learn the new registers. And I think she's doing very, very well. And so we've got that straightened out, and her income, when should be full time, certainly within the next year. And once she gets that, we will have enough. We're going to sell this place. We've got enough equity that we can put a really good down payment on the next one. And boy, did I ramble on. This is just supposed to be my neuro history. Well, I'm trying to set it up so that we get in a place. We've decided we're going to get a townhouse. We're going to buy a new one. And it will be accessible. Now, it's going to be hard to find one with a bedroom downstairs. We really don't want stairs. But due to finances and several reasons, but we'll probably end up with one that only has bedrooms upstairs. I know of one model that has a master bedroom downstairs and a master bath upstairs. But anyway, we're preparing for a future while I decline, and that's it's kind of brutal. And I really don't know how to handle this. I'm handling things as well as I can, but you're really afraid that you're going to make big mistakes. And managing the finances is getting very, very difficult. I imagine 2 years from now I won't be able to handle the finances. But I got to get through this next year. We're going to put the house on the market. The target is March 15th. Hopefully we'll have a place picked out. They are building a lot of good condos a little bit further west from Mount Juliet, where we live, and to Lebanon. We have a lot going on there. I go over there. I'm a sports medicine guy because I still work out, and I still do things that are they give me little tweaks, and they fix me up really quick. And anyway, sports medicine is there. There's a Publix there. Actually, you could drive to 3 different Publixes, 4 different Publixes from there in a good amount of time. So both my ladies, my daughter is going to stay with us. And God, I hate what they've done to our culture and finances for young people. It's driving me crazy. But the only way that hopefully she'll find a guy, and that's a whole different discussion that I really don't understand what's going on. Dating dating, definitely not like it was when I was younger. Anyway, hopefully she'll find a guy and get married and move out. But let's say that she doesn't, she needs to have her own place. So she can stay with us as long as she takes what would be her rent and puts it in a savings account. And hopefully, I'm trying to get her investment, even if it's just in a savings account. She's going to need, $30,000 to get a small place, minimum, and that will be mortgage insurance too. So, but I want to be able to help her, and hopefully, I'll still have a functioning brain to help her get that place. But she's gonna stay with us. And it's like I used to be like, well, you got to be out of the house by the time you're 25. Well, if she's out of the house by 25, she probably, if she doesn't find a guy and doesn't team up, and you know, she's she's not going to be able to own a home. And then I'll get into what I think about that, and because I think it was kind of a setup. Oh God, I left all the expired meds sitting out on that. Where's it? Over that way. Yeah, I've got a bunch of expired meds that I pulled out of the drawer because we're going to downsize, so I'm in the process of throwing things away. I've got a bunch of stuff on the table over here that I got to go through and throw away, but I've also got a slew of pictures. But anyway, boy, have I rambled on. But I'm going to try to do a short clip every day. Not this one. I don't even know how far I've gotten into this one. It's probably 20 minutes by this time. But I'll try to do this every day, and I'll just give you an update of what's going on, and give you some. I'm doing a body, mind, and spirit approach to slowing this thing down, and I'm gonna do everything I can to extend my cognitive life, and I'm gonna have some joy. I'm at peace with this now. I'm mostly. And I could say that in a lot of ways I'm happy. And it's taken a long time to get back to where I could actually utter those words. So, um, I wouldn't have done this before. I wouldn't have done what I'm doing right now, except when I had delusions that I was going to be some kind of superstar YouTube guy. But anyway, that's it. Maybe I ought to just put this on my YouTube channel. What the hell? All right.